Hi, everybody. Mrs. Norris here. So today I want to walk you through document D, and which is our final document of the DBQ, just to make sure that you understand where to find our correct answers. Now, before we get started with anything, what I'd like for you to do is pause this tutorial and open up your document D, and then have two windows open, one with this discussion thread and the other one with your answers. Now, you're not going to be resubmitting document D. I just want you to see where your answers were either correct or incorrect, kind of guide you in how to find the answers within the document. So again, what I'd like for you to do right now is pause this tutorial and open up two windows, one with the discussion thread. I will have you type something down below, and the other one with your document D open so you can compare your answers. So can you please pause your video and do that for me now? All right, so you can see from my document D that I've already found, highlighted, annotated the answers and typed the answers for numbers 2, 3, and 4. So it was pretty simple, 2, 3, and 4. You just had to identify which states had the smallest amount of representation, which one had the largest amount, and then how the House was determined, how representation in the House was determined. So those three things were fairly simple. So I don't really feel like I need to go over them, but if you want to pause the video and just take a look at where I found those answers in case the first time around you didn't get them correct, you can do that now. Okay. The ones I want to focus on are numbers 4, 5, and then the one that for whatever reason, and I'm going to move myself over here, didn't make it to our DBQ document, which is really what every other document has had. And how does this information that's in this document connect to the idea of protecting against tyranny? So that's the answer that we're going to discuss today, and the one that I will have you write in the discussion thread down below. Okay, so let's talk about number 4. Number 4 says, who would have been happier with their representation in the House, small states or large states, and why? So when we look at it, we can see that if the large states are probably going to have the largest population, they're going to be happy with the one that uses population as a determinant of how many representatives they're going to have, because obviously the more people that you have in the House, the more of a voice you have when decisions are being made, and in the government, your voice is your power. So if the House of Representatives is based on population, that's going to be the one that the larger states are going to be happier with. So you can see I've already started my answer for number 4. It says blank states would be happier with their representation in the House because. So I'm going to take that line off here and write larger, or type larger. States would be happier with the representation in the House because they have more representatives, which means they have more of a voice in the decisions, which means they have more power. So I'm going to go ahead and type that answer here. So because they have more representation in the House, which means they have more of a voice in decisions, which means they have more power. So again, your voice is your power when decisions are being made, regardless of where they are being made, in your personal life, in your social life, in the government life. If you have a voice, then you have power. And the more people that have a voice shared with yours, where ideas are shared the same as you, then the more power you have. Okay, so let's look at number 5 then. Obviously, you can kind of go by deduction. If the larger states are going to like the House because they have more people, more power, then the smaller states are going to like the Senate, likely because they have the same number of representatives. So what happens usually is a decision is made in the House first, and then that decision goes to the Senate for approval. So even though the larger states have more of a voice in the House, they still need that Senate approval where the smaller states have the equal number of representation in that spot. Okay, so obviously the smaller states are going to be happier with the representation in the Senate. So I'm going to type smaller here. Okay. And that is because now they are not outnumbered by the larger states, but now they have the same number of representatives. So I'm going to type that here because they have the same number of senators as the big states. So their power is more equal. Okay, so if you didn't get these similar answers to your own questions, hopefully now you have an idea of why that might be. Okay, now the question that was missing was question number 6, and so that's the one that we are going to talk about together, and then you're going to be typing in the discussion thread below as you have done in previous discussion threads. Okay, so the question is, how does this protect against tyranny? So equal representation in the Senate is going to protect those small states from being taken over by the large states. And then when you look at that, okay, well, so then why isn't there equal representation in the House as well? Well, because what ends up happening is the larger states aren't going to be taken over in the decision process by the smaller states. Their decisions are going to be equaled out in the fact that they have more in that House. Okay, so again, just to kind of say it over for you, the reason why it's going to guard against tyranny is if the smaller states had the same number of representatives in the House and the same number of representatives in the Senate, effectively, you've given the smaller states more power. Because if the smaller states who tend to kind of vote the same on things, if the smaller states had equal power in the House and the Senate, then what they may do is overtake the larger states. So by allowing the larger states to have a little more of a voice in the House, but still having the Senate be equal, it kind of neutralizes the larger states from being taken over by the smaller states. So again, smaller states tend to vote the same, and if it were equal in the House, then they may take over those larger states. They may take the power away from the larger states. So that's why it makes it easy. The larger states have more of a voice and more power in the House, and the smaller states have more of a voice, more power in the Senate. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and write that answer here. Equal representation in the Senate protected the small states from being taken over by the large states. Unequal representation in the House protects the states with larger populations from being, the word is neutralized, which means that when you're neutralized, then your whatever it is that's being neutralized is taken away. So in this case, their power, when it's neutralized, means that their power is taken away. So I'm going to write the word neutralized by a minority. Okay. All right, so what I'd like for you to do is pause this or Actually, this is where we can stop on document D. And in the space down below of this discussion thread, I'd like you to copy that answer for number 6 that doesn't exist on your actual document. So how does this protect against tyranny? Equal representation in the Senate protected the small states from being taken over by the large states. Unequal representation in the House protects the states with larger populations from being neutralized by a minority, having their voice taken away by a minority, having their power taken away. So go ahead and stop this video. That's where we will end for document D, and type that last piece down below in the discussion thread.